Today's guest is Joseph Guimarra, Senior Vice President of Corporate and Tech at HAVAS Red. He spent over a decade building narratives for some of the most recognized names in tech and the public sector, companies like GitLab, Okta, Twilio, translating complex ideas into stories that people can actually understand and trust. I'm so excited to have you here today, Joe. Welcome to Digital Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So you have worked across agencies, tech clients, now at a senior leadership. So when you zoom out, what do you think most companies still misunderstand about what storytelling is supposed to do inside an organization?
I think the biggest misconception about the storytelling from an organizational standpoint is really that they think about it as a moment in time versus a continuous narrative that they need to develop over years. It's not just one campaign. It's not just one new product. Consumers, audiences, B2B, B2C, whatever it may be, can see right through the holes in your story. And if you don't have a story that you are trying to tell that connects it all holistically, then it's going to feel disjointed, right? You're not going to connect the dots. And what are people going to anchor it to? That's why it's so important to get the messaging right across the board and make sure that everything that you do ladders up to your North Star. And whatever that North Star may be, whether it is talking about you being the leading voice AI platform, or if you're talking about being a leading global staffing agency, whatever it is, what is that story that you're telling? And is it consistent throughout the products, priorities, markets, everything that you do?
Yeah, ooh, that's such a sharp distinction. And you talked about storytelling as a long-term reputation asset. So what are the early signals that tell you a company is building that well versus just producing content that looks good in the moment,
Yeah, I think it's what you could do is, when you're looking at what the content that's being produced, whether it is a podcast, blog, just a press release, you could see a narrative being developed even just as a general bystander, a general consumer of news, right? You could see what that story is. And when you start to have to say, wait, but didn't they say this and they're saying this now? Or, a good example is when people have talked about climate ambition early on for a couple of years, right? They're talking about sustainability. They're building out these big ambitions. They're like, we're going to achieve net zero by 2030. And then 2 years down the road, well, actually, let's take a step back and let's understand that. And it's good to be ambitious. But again, it's how you tell that story of being ambitious, right? Hey, we're going to go for it. We're going to reach for the stars. We may not make it. We may have to adjust on the way. And if that isn't told throughout the lineage of the story, then people are not going to follow and people are going to mistrust you. And right now, trust is massive in media, in marketing, and everything else.
Yeah, I've never heard it framed that way before. And like in fast-moving tech environments, there's constant pressure to announce, launch, react. So how do you protect narrative coherence when everything around you is like fragmented and moving so quickly?
By not being a yes person.
Okay.
You just can't. I think and I've done with this on the agency side. Early on in my career, I was always saying, yes, I'll do the work. Even from an internal standpoint, if you think about it, right? Oh, can you help write this byline? Oh, can you help pitch this person? Oh, can you help do this? Yes, 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 yes. And before you know it, you're drowning and you're trying to catch up and you're losing sight of what you originally started to go for. And I think in tech, everyone wants to move fast and be the first out there, but they don't understand that in order to move fast, you need to move slow at the same time. You need to figure out what are those moments where we're allowed to take a step back, understand what we're trying to say. Again, does it connect to the story that we're trying to tell? Or is it a shift in narrative that we need to communicate clearly now so that there's no miscommunication amongst investors that we're working with, or when we're pitching for funding, that we're still telling the same story and there's a narrative out there about our transition into kind of what we're doing. And I think a lot of people think that you just got to move fast. No, it's not necessarily that. It's you can move fast once you have the right elements in in place. And you don't have to have all the elements to move fast. It's just you have to have specific elements to make sure that you're buttoned up. If you're going to tell a story about AI, right? Let's make sure that you have a spokesperson that could talk about it from the ground up, right? Who's implementing AI? Who's using it? What is the impact that they're seeing in real life? Do you have a client that could actually speak to it as well, so that you have that case study perspective? And then from a high level technical perspective, do you have somebody that could dig into the detail? And if you don't have all those different pieces, then you're not ready to tell the story and you can't move fast. But you can move fast to make sure that you have the right people speaking on those topics to deliver your message and go back to the story that you're trying to.
I love that. That's very interesting. I feel like that is a really mature way of looking at this, because, when you're starting, it's like you want to say yes all the time.
Of course. But the fact is, a client, anyone that you work with, does not value you as much if you're just a yes person. If you're just a yes person, okay, so you're just agreeing with what I'm thinking about. You're just agreeing with my storyline. You think this is a good strategy that we can move forward with. Okay, well, then I want a true partner to think about this, and somebody that's going to push back, right? A competitor announced something that's going out there. Okay, we need to go out with a statement on our blog and make sure that it's out there right now. And hold up, are we sure that's the right method that we want to go? Or do we want to have more impact? Who are we trying to speak to? Who's the audience? Are you just doing this because you're mad and upset right now? If so, let's take a step back. We can figure out a solution to this, but we need to think about it. We need to understand what is going on before we move forward.
Oh, I love that. When you've built narratives for companies dealing with complex or highly technical products. Yep. I'm curious, what's your approach to simplifying without flattening the meaning or losing credibility?
Same approach to the media. It's reading, digging deep into it, understanding all the different points, and being curious. If you're not curious about what things do, and if you think, even as simple, like if you think about it on a B2B side, right, there's award submissions that people want to submit for, and it says innovative customer experiences, right? And we're saying, okay, we want to submit for this award. Okay, great. It's getting as minute as saying, what customer? Is it B2B customers? Is it B2C customers? Like, who are we trying to impact here when you talk about innovative customer experiences? And I think that goes back to how do you simplify technical language? How do you simplify everything else, right? It's by questioning everything, being curious about it, and asking those questions. A lot of the time, again, it goes back to being a yes person. Can't just be a yes person. I still remember there was a sustainability project that I was working on where we were digging into their impact report, and they really wanted to tell their impact report. Like, we got a lot of stories that we want to tell, and this is what we want to do. I'm like, that's great. That's fantastic. So I was sitting down across from the CSO, the chief sustainability officer, and I go, okay, so I read through the impact report, and here's where you contradict yourself. Why is that? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're contradicting yourself. You're saying that your ambition is this, but then again, it's counterintuitive to what you're doing in this area. And she looked at me. She's like, how many pages did you read? I'm like, I read all 182 pages. That's what I'm supposed to do. But you need to get into that level of detail. And that's what I also mean by you got to take a step back and be a little bit slow at points, because if you're going too fast, you're going to miss those finer details that help you understand and ask the pointed questions that are going to get the answers that you want.
That's such an important point. And I mean, like, there's a lot of conversation around trust in tech right now. So in your experience, is trust something you can actively build through communications, or is it more something you reveal over time?
So yes, trust can be actively built through comms. I'm sorry, I think you froze. Are you still hearing me?
I'm sorry. I was just really focusing.
Okay, no, because it froze for a second. Can we restart just kind of with the top of the question, and then I'll answer?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of conversation around trust in tech. So in your experience, is trust something you can actively build through communications, or is it more something you reveal over time?
Both. I think over time you build trust. You can't expect to go out to market immediately and say, guess what? They're going to trust me because I say they should
Mhm.
trust me. And it goes beyond narratives, right? When you think about a campaign or a narrative, you're not just telling your story to one channel or one medium. It's multiple voices across multiple channels, across multiple formats.
Yeah.
And again, you got to make sure that the narrative is consistent, because where people start to mistrust you is when you start going back on your word and saying a complete 180 from what you were saying before, right? Like if you just say, our AI is not going to replace humans. Humans are always going to be in the loop. And then you go ahead and lay people off and you're like, oh, we don't need those humans anymore. Well, yeah, they're not going to trust you. You said initially that it's going to help humans. It's not going to hurt humans. And now you're saying that you got to get rid of them because we're not doing the jobs. That doesn't make sense. Immediately we go, no, which is why there's such big discourse right now about mistrust in AI, right? You got graduation ceremonies where people are getting booed.
Oh my God, I saw that.
It's absolutely wild right now. And I think over years, they've done a terrible job of explaining why the general public should trust them. It's been terrible. At one point, you have the fear mongering. You have AI is going to replace 50% of the workforce and all this. And I don't know if that's the exact numbers, but we all hear it day to day,
Mhm.
right? And I think we're inundated with that fearful news. So when somebody says that, our ears go up, right? But you have CEOs and leaders of AI companies saying this. That's not the narrative you want to say. And if it's true, then be honest about it consistently, right?
Mhm.
Instead of flip-flopping back and forth. And I understand the technology evolves so fast, but that's why it's not always necessary to be the first to market to say a story. If you're looking to build long-term success, it's about how you can continue that narrative and bring along your audiences for the ride. It's B2B, B2C, B2B2C, whatever it may be. You just got to make sure that you're constantly building that trust at every point you make. At the trade shows you're at, are you building trust with the audiences there? Investor meetings, are you building confidence there? If you're a publicly traded company during earnings, are you using that as an opportunity to continue to build trust with your audiences and stakeholders, right? There's all
Yeah.
these opportunities for you to build that trust and develop a consistent narrative. And you just need to make sure that, you aren't contradicting yourself along the way.
It's so interesting how much of that comes down to consistency.
Honestly, it's absolutely wild. I think we were talking about before how people want to move fast, right? Well, in PR, everyone's like, well, what are you going to do for me now? It's like, I understand, but sometimes it takes time to build relationships with media on the earned side. In the meantime, we could do these other things, but then they're expecting a quick turn because that's how we're conditioned to be. Social media, AI, you get everything so quickly. They're thinking that on the media front, it's the same way, and it's just not. There are less reporters and editors out there that are covering more. There are more PR professionals out there that are pitching more. And with AI helping them, my goodness, if they're using AI in the wrong way, then it just paints a bad picture. And talk about mistrust, paints a bad picture for the PR practitioners that are doing it well, because the reporter mistrusts PR practitioners because of the fact that they're receiving irrelevant, non-informative, offbeat stories that just go, well, if this PR person is pitching me and I get, 10 of my 12 pitches are irrelevant, why should I trust PR? It goes back to that. So even treating ourselves as like, how are we building trust with our clients? How are we building trust with the media? It comes back to that as well. And I think when you are a business or organization looking for a PR agency, you need to make sure that you're in step with your PR agency or creative agency or whoever it may be, because they're a reflection of you, right? Yeah. There was a media panel that I attended, and they were saying how, the best thing to build trust for a relationship is whenever we reach out to you to give us an answer and something. What is that and something? If you can't comment, can you connect us to somebody? If don't tell me, hey, I'll get back to you. Let me see who does this, and then just go silent and be like, no comment. Like that ends the conversation, that ends trust. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening in general with, organizations that are trying to build trust over time.
Wow, that was so sharp and intentional. I love the way your perspective on that. And like when communications truly becomes the connective tissue, I love that word, across leadership, product, culture, what changes internally? Like what feels different inside a company when that's working in your experience?
It feels like there's something for people to rally behind, right? When what you're saying internally is matched externally, is matched through every single medium that you have, when product is building it, if there's a clear direction that people are going towards, they're more likely to get behind it because they understand it. And again, it goes to how you can simplify what that message is and what that story is across the teams, right? If you're building product at a company, you're building it because it's serving the mission of your organization. Well, what is the mission of your organization? What is the mission of your business? And is that communicated externally? Is that communicated internally? The campaigns that you built should not just be for, oh, this one year we're going to talk about this. This one year we're going to talk about this. There should be one overall campaign that everything ladders up to over the years, especially if you're looking at trying to build a long-term business that you're looking to sustain success over time. And you can't do that if you're constantly shifting what you're talking about or how you're doing it, right? And again, that's where it takes strong internal comms and external comms people to come together and collaborate on what that message is, right? I think right now a lot of businesses treat internal and external comms as separate. And when they do bring it together, there's not as much cohesion as there should be. And there's an opportunity to make the cohesion just a little bit better, to make sure that what you're saying internally doesn't contradict what you're saying externally. Because I've seen it a lot in organizations. And then when you poke holes and dig, it comes to light, and then they go, oh yeah, maybe we should not tell that story right now because we haven't told it internally yet. So maybe we should have a roadmap for that. I'm like, yeah, you probably should make sure that the people who are working for you understand what direction you have so that they could rally behind you, and then you could explain it externally. That way, let's say a reporter just randomly goes, hey, I ran into one of your employees in the street and they said this, is that true? And if they come back to you, you could say, yeah, absolutely. I talk about it every day internally. What are they going to do? Builds trust, continues the narrative, and everyone has a unified project to kind of work towards across all divisions.
It goes down to consistency again, right?
Yep. I say this as if anyone can do it, even though it's not for everyone. Communications is really simple. People try to complicate it. It doesn't have to be complicated. Mm-hmm. There are complicated issues that you have to address, but typically the simplest answers are usually the right ones that you need to move forward with. And sometimes you need to be like, have I thought about this enough? Can we move forward? What are the pitfalls? What are the advantages? Are we good with this risk? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, let's move forward. No need to continue to talk about it. We had the right decision makers in it, right? And I think everyone makes it a little bit more complicated. Like, how much do you hear jargon and acronyms on calls? And it's like, oh God, just tell me what it is. Please just tell me what it is. Make it so that a fifth grader can understand, even though some fifth graders, I admit, are smarter, but anyway. But, make it easy, make it so that we could understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And like, how do you advise leadership teams who want to show up during important moments but haven't done like the foundational work beforehand? Like, is there a way to do that authentically, or is that like already too late?
I don't think it's too late. I think there are ways that, and it depends how much time you have leading up to when they want to present themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And I think as C-suite leaders, you could pretty much jump in any time. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason as to why you shouldn't be involved in it. Maybe you were more vocal at one point. This is a passion project. But again, it's about connecting it back to what you were talking about and what is the mission and how it ties to what your belief is. I think a lot of people need to hear the humanization of why this person is speaking to a specific topic, right? A lot of times they forget that we're speaking to other humans, other people,
Humans.
other
Yeah.
humans that want to hear how we speak. And yes, I know in the world of AEO, GEO, all of that AI overviews and such, that we want to make sure that we're saying the right things. But at the end of the day, those models are picking up plain language. They're not picking up the technical language as much, unless you ask specifically about that technical language. But think about it: when you're searching, for a topic, how in depth are you going with your first question? What are the best coffee makers to get? Simple, right? Nothing. Then you get a little deeper, and I think that's where, bringing it back to the executives, when they come in, don't try to be something you're not. I think they try to fit in and be like, oh, I could say this about this. It's like, no, what do you want to say on a human level? And I think it's up to us as communicators to get that out of executives and help them understand. And again, if the person isn't right for the story, we need to feel comfortable saying, I don't think you're right for this story. Here's why. Here's what we could do instead. There's always here's what we could do instead. Here's a solution, right? Maybe it's we can't have you be part of this press release or insert your voice. However, if you're really good on camera and are passionate about this, why don't we think about it's old school, but satellite media tour, right? Like, what do we think about different activations, or what do we think about contributed content that you could release on your LinkedIn profiles, or blogs that you could do for the website? Like, what are the different avenues that we could do? Or on social media, maybe a video that you could do speaking about it from your heart, about kind of what you feel about the topic or the announcement or the product or whatever it may be. I think it's about finding those authentic ways to get them in, but it's never too late. It's just, again, poking holes, asking the questions, providing solutions, and then again, simplifying it for people to understand why this person is speaking to it.
Oh, that's really thoughtful. I love that answer. I couldn't agree more. Like, I, with a passion, agree with more humanized terms, like, absolutely.
A while ago, I was having a conversation with a colleague. It was when I was getting into some cybersecurity work with clients, and it wasn't an argument, but it was a spirited discussion, because I was still new to cybersecurity. I didn't know all the terms, right? God knows I still don't know all the terms.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and I was like, you don't make it easy for us to have a conversation about cybersecurity.
Oh my God.
For anyone that's looking or interested, as I am. Like, I'm really interested. When I was younger, I built computers. When I was younger, like, I originally went to school for information systems. So,
no way.
Yeah, so tech, it was always been a part of my life and always interested. And when it started getting into cybersecurity, I was like, oh man, that's fascinating. I want to work more in that space. But when I started working in that space, the conversation wasn't allowing me to insert. No matter how much I read, how much I did, I was just getting more confused. So I had this conversation with this person, and I was like, we need to speak easier to people to help them understand. And anyway, we had a discussion. The very next day, head of CISA comes out and goes, as an industry, we need to be more plain spoken. And I was like, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. But again, I think people overcomplicate things. You need to go back to the basics sometimes, slow down, understand what is resonating with the people. Burger King, think about this. Burger King for 5 years got rid of their mascot, right? The king. And what they said is, we listen to you. Our CEO opened up his line so that you could give us recommendations, because I think we missed somewhere. So we opened up the conversation lines. And when we opened up the conversation lines, we realized we need to get back to the basics of who we are and what we stand for. So they lost sight of the story that they were telling for a couple of years. So like, oh, we got to go back to that story and make it cohesive across everything that we do. So instead of them saying like, here's the king, they're saying we're crowning a new king, and that new king is you. So here's how we're moving forward in it. And I thought that was fantastic, right? They put it back. They brought it back to the human level. They brought it back to their original mission. They went back to their roots, and they said, we're going to speak directly to you. We know who our audience is. We know what our mission is, and that's what we're going to focus on. We're upgrading our facilities. We're doing all these things to make sure that you feel heard and understood. And I thought that was fantastic. And I think it's something that a lot of other brands across different sectors can truly understand, because sometimes you get so stuck in day to day that, you're talking acronyms, you're talking such complicated language, you lose sight of who your audience actually is and what they respond to.
Oh my God, that was such a good answer, Joe. Wow, like everything. It was a perfect answer. And like when you said the Burger King thing, I just saw myself as a kid and just like in my childhood with that little crown.
Yeah,
for crown.
exactly. First of all, I thought the king was a little creepy. That's just neither here nor there. But it was to your point, right? You remember yourself getting crowned and you're like, oh my God, I got a crown. This is awesome. I'm a king or a queen. Like, this is fantastic. And then they lost sight of that. They didn't take care. They didn't listen to their, consumers at the end of the day. And so it started slipping. And it's like, okay, well, we got to get back to that. And kudos to the CEO to realizing that and actually enacting that and moving it forward. And even if it is a stunt, which I don't think it is, it doesn't come across as that. It comes across as authentic. And I think that is a huge takeaway from everything I've been saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you've had this kind of like a boomerang career path with HAVAS, like coming back at a more senior level. How has your perspective on building narratives evolved from your earlier roles to now?
So early on in my career, it was a lot of trial by fire. And there was a lot of good learning experiences that I had along the way. I messed up a lot.
Like one does.
Yeah, like one does, but I learned from them. I moved on. And each stop along my way has given me new perspectives in a certain way. It helped me go towards the way I wanted to. Like early on, I really started on the consumer side. Then I shifted over to the nonprofit side and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. But what fascinated me about the nonprofit side is that it wasn't just telling stories for telling stories and selling product. It was telling stories to impact something, right? You always had an impact at the end of the day. And for me, consumer just doesn't resonate as much as B2B and thought leadership and like helping a business tell their story because they're making a difference in some way, shape, or form, whether that is helping businesses be more secure or helping people better communicate with customers on the tech side, or even, creating hearing aids and glasses so that, it doesn't look like you have that stigma of wearing a hearing aid, but instead it's in the style that you normally wear, right? So helping people in that way. And I would say my first stint at HAVAS was, again, a wealth of learning where I understood even more so where I wanted to be on the tech, on the B2B side, on the corporate side, helping leaders tell their story, whether it is sustainability or not. And then I left to really grow my technical skills, right? Just understanding, working with a different group of individuals, building trust, making sure that there was more there. And then as I built out those capabilities on my side and became more confident in my work, I realized I'm like, you know what? I really enjoyed the work and people and opportunities I had at HAVAS. So I said, okay, I think it's time to go back. So I actually reached out to HAVAS and was like, hey, I know, it's been X amount of time, but I would love to come back. I think I could really help the team. And I see a lot of opportunity for us. And it was mutual. I don't like to say that. One thing I learned over the years is that no matter what, this is a business.
Yeah.
It isn't, we're not family. We're not friends. As much as nobody wants to hear that, we're colleagues. We are colleagues paid to succeed at what we're doing. And if you don't succeed at what you're doing, I don't care how nice or how conversational you are or how much you actually help in everything that we do. You're not delivering. Bye. Right?
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate truth of it. Now, nobody wants to hear that. But what I learned over the years and since coming back to HAVAS is my success is defined by the success of my team. And so how can I be a better person to my team to help them succeed and eventually take my role? I want them to take my role. I want them to have that ambition. So how do I get them to be ambitious while being thoughtful about the things that they do because of all of the things I've learned previously, right? When I've gotten overwhelmed, what has happened, what I did wrong, what I did right, all those lessons that I can impart. I think there's a lot that I learned personally and in work experience wise, but also from a personal experience that helped shape and grow over the years. Because I think right now, your demeanor at work is shaped by both your personal life and your work life.
Yeah.
If you're not settled on your personal life, you're not going to be good at your work life. It's just not possible, right? And in PR, as you know, it is creative agency, whatever it may be. It is fast paced. A lot can happen, and it's a matter of how you roll with the speed bumps that come along your way, right? It may feel like a mountain today, but little by little, it'll become that hill that you're raising. You're almost at the summit, and you come down and you're like, oh, okay, we're good. But how do you get there without overloading yourself, right? And you have to have a balance in some way, shape, or form versus just putting your all into one or the other. So that's why I say, like, you need a personal side, you need a professional side, and both of them need to mesh in some way, shape, or form, or have some type of balance, whatever your balance looks like to you, in order for you to be successful. And I think that that's really what I learned from jumping around from agencies. It's kind of like when I was in college. I didn't learn too much, to be honest, that was new to me, but I learned how to balance life, right? College was the best area to balance my life and understand, how am I going to get work done, but also how am I going to have a little bit of fun doing it, right?
Yeah. I saw you attended Penn State University.
Yes, I did. We are.
My best friend went to Penn State, so I went to visit her, and I went to the whiteout. Like, I know what you mean about the balance. Yeah. It's great that college, taught you to.
And you know, I wish the best for the current students out today, but I, you know, not to date myself, but no technology except for 3 a.m. in the morning writing a paper that you needed to get done by 7 a.m. And we still did well on those papers. So that translated, that type of research and ethic, like that work translated into the work I do now, because I know I could slow down, because if I needed to, I could get my work done, because I know how to balance that, right? I know how much time I have until I go, okay, I need to step on the gas.
That's great. I love that. And like, if you look ahead a few years, you know, with AI, faster cycles, more channels, like, what do you think will still separate the brands that are deeply understood from the ones that just stay visible?
The human element. At the end of the day, it is, if you think about it, even people who are using AI, right? I don't know about you, but I've seen some of the output. It's not good. It's really not good. You need a human still for a lot of the work that we do. And if you lose that human element, you lose your story. I mean, I was on a chatbot today that was powered by AI. And I got so frustrated with it. I'm like, just send me to a human, please. It's a very simple question. And you keep on taking me to an FAQ that I've already read. I don't need to read this. I just need to know this answer. I need customer support. I need a human, please, right? And then, of course, there are ways that technology can help you be more efficient. But it's about what is that automation that helps us do our work better versus what is that automation so we could save money. That like, if we're more efficient, we could be more productive, and you still need that human element. And if you don't have that human element, regardless of what business you are, it's not going to go too well. I mean, I don't know about you. I still don't get in Waymos because I'm like, no, I'm just not. Never. I don't. But still, they have humans sometimes behind the car, tuning in to make sure that nothing is going wrong, right? But you still have that human element. And all I'm saying is there's always going to be that there's going to be a necessity to make sure that humans are involved, humans are in the loop. And it's how you communicate that to make sure that people are still productive and behind you.
Oh my God, absolutely. Could you imagine, like, if humans weren't involved?
No. I mean, no, just no. And plus, do I want that? No. We are, humans are flawed. Humans are beautiful. We are these. It's a wonder to how we are as humans, right? But the connection is what makes us human. If we're constantly in our phones or in AI or looking for AI for advice, why don't I just talk to my wife first? Why don't I just talk to my best friend for advice? Do I agree with them? No, but that's okay. Every once in a while, why don't we step away from, I don't need to Google this to understand it or be so reliant on tech. But again, I'm always looking for the human element in any brand that I work with that is telling their story. And if they're like, we're going to completely automate 100% of our jobs and all this, like, okay, good luck with that. I think there was an example of this was years ago, 80s, 90s, somewhere around that time. And apologies if it's not correct, but the sentiment is the right thing. GMC invested heavily in automation for automation's sake. Right, we're going to increase the production on our product lines. We're going to do this. We're going to automate. Back in the day when GMC was heavy hitter in the U.S., Toyota on the other hand was like, we're going to automate where necessary to make it more efficient, but humans are going to stay in the loop. What happened is that the more that they invested in automation without human oversight, the more the production line failed. They were painting doors different colors, hoods different colors, and everything else. So they had to readjust and adjust that strategy. So there was no idea of how do we implement something that is conducive to our current workforce, that helps them do better, but helps us maybe be a little bit more efficient. Toyota did that. And we know where Toyota is now. We know where GMC is now, technically, in comparison. And so it's fascinating to think about. And this happened in like the 80s and 90s. Same thing's happening now. Right. So it's just fascinating to see. It's just a cycle. And those who succeed long term are going to make sure that the humans are participating in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we need to learn from history. I mean, I didn't know of this example. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's wild. Might have been an article that I was reading. I forget. I read so much that sometimes it blends. But yeah, it's fascinating. And we can't forget that as humans, we want connection, which is why storytelling resonates more than just data alone. Great. 66% of CIOs do this. Cool. Like, so why? Right? What's the tension? What's the story that you're telling? And that's what's going to resonate, right? When you think about insurance stories that are out there, the insurance stories that you see out there are rates are raising. This is how it's impacting this is how it's impacting consumers, right? And then you also see you rarely see kind of the positive side of it, but that's because it's just one side of the story. But if you say, "Hey, consumer rates are the rates are raising for policyholders," however, this organization is doing everything they can to try to limit what that is. Here's how they're doing it. Explain it and connect with the humans on the level and be like, "We hear you. We know it is." The rates are going up. Here's what you need to understand from our perspective. Again, you bring a human element into that. And while their claims assistant may be AI powered, right? You still have a human that is looking at it, right? You could become more efficient in terms of how you do work, but at the end of the day, you still need to connect on a human level.
Oh, I love that answer. Absolutely. I mean, yes to humanity all the way. It sometimes can get so scary, like the fear element of AI it's real. So I love having conversations like this.
I grew up watching the Terminator movies, right? T2 came out. I'm like, oh goodness, the machines are going to overtake us and everything else. But you know what? The more I see machines trying to take us over, the more I go, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I think, can it evolve to a time where it's at? Sure, absolutely. But I don't think we're ever going to get there. Not at least not in our lifetime. As much as it has advanced, and a lot of communicators are putting new names on things, right? AI, or is it machine learning? Right? Like, is it truly artificial intelligence? Is it truly, or is it? Largely, like what? Like there's such a fine line between defining what it is, and again, that's where we come in as humans and explain it to you as if you understand, like to help you understand what we're talking about when we mean AI. We had Alexa and Google Home for how long, right? Is that technically AI? Or is that just a chatbot? But we had chatbots that were doing similar things, but is it doing it? Like, how do you, like, yes, there is a delineation, of course, right? I'm not saying it's all the same, but sometimes we're just masking what we have already as AI. That isn't necessarily AI. But if you say it's AI, people go, oh yeah, it's AI.
Oh my God, I had never thought about it that way. You just gave me a lot to think about, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, this was like a really thoughtful conversation. Like, I love the way you think about storytelling. It feels very grounded and very intentional and honestly very human, like in a space that can sometimes feel the opposite.
Yeah.
You have a really clear way of bringing structure to things that are usually like messy and abstract, and that really comes through in how you lead and how you communicate. So I thank you for taking the time. I know our audience is going to take a lot from this one, so I really appreciate you taking the time, Joe.
Of course. And if there's one thing I always want to make sure I do with work and everything else, at the end of the day, try to have fun. Just try to have fun. The world is crazy out there. If you're not having fun, then what are you doing? Just figure out what it is. If you need to bring music into meetings, if you need to do whatever, right? Like you need to do whatever you need to do to have a little bit of fun and just take a step back, slow down, enjoy the first couple of minutes, and then be like, all right, let's get to work.
I feel that in my heart and in my soul.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.